We'll go next to the Cy-Hawk game, one of my favorite rivalries in the sport. It's Iowa at Iowa State. This game will be 12 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. Iowa State is currently a 3-point favorite. Jack Trice Stadium, great environment. It's a great rivalry that dates back to the 1800s. But what's amazing, you would think, the hostile setting that is Jack Trice Stadium, you'd think that'd be hard for the opposition, right? They can't win on the road in a rivalry game. That never happens, right? Well, the Hawkeyes have won 6 straight inside Jack Trice. That's a pretty remarkable run. And overall, the Cyclones, they're just 8-21 all time at home, which was a little mind-blowing as well. So you look at the overall history of the series. Iowa has traditionally dominated, but recent history been a lot more competitive. This is tense, low scoring. 9 of the last 13 matchups have been decided by a touchdown or less. Iowa's Kirk Ferentz been around forever, 27 years, running the Hawkeye program. You know what they're going to do? Complementary football. Iowa State's Matt Campbell, one of the best talent developers in college football, and does a great job on a week-to-week basis adjusting to what the game needs for them to be successful. Let's go to the quarterback matchup. There is an advantage here in one direction, in my opinion. Iowa's Mark Gronowski. He was brought in to kind of revitalize a passing attack that's been one of the worst for a while. And if you look at the opener, there were some struggles. They didn't have much rhythm in the passing game. He finished just 8 of 15 for 44 yards and the short touchdown. Now, we know he can run. We know he's got that dual threat capability, so he did add nearly 40 on the ground himself, but he missed some layups. He's got to be more precise in this game if they're going to pull off the upset on the road. Iowa State's Rocco Beck on the other side. In the opener, the numbers wouldn't necessarily blow you away. He was just 14 of 28 for 183, but he did have 3 touchdowns, 1 on the ground. And with the game on the line, he delivered maybe the most important play of the game. That was the completion there to the left-hand side to Carson Hansen on 4th and 3 that secured the victory. And then last week against South Dakota, he set a program record for completion percentage. He hit 19 of 20 for 278 and 3 touchdowns. So here's hoping he can carry over some of the performance from the last 2 weeks into what should be an incredible game. Question number 1, can Iowa control the line of scrimmage offensively? They have a really good offensive line, and we've known that now for a while. This has always been a legitimate strength of Iowa's team. They really imposed their will on the ground last week. They went for 310 on the ground. That's the most in a season opener since 2002. They controlled it all the way through, averaging nearly 6 yards per carry and dominating time of possession. If you look at their weaponry at running back, they have a lot of guys that you could really like. Now, Xavier Williams, who had a breakout performance, that was his college debut. He's a redshirt freshman. He's the first Iowa freshman to break over 100 yards in his debut since Sean Green 20 years ago. He went for 122 and a touchdown on just 11 carries. So he's got some speed, he's got some power. It's a pretty lethal combination. And if they can kind of control the clock, shrink the game, Iowa held the ball for over 36 minutes last week. That would go a long way in allowing them to continue their mentality of playing very, very complimentary. For Iowa State, the plan's pretty simple. Sell out against the run. You force a struggling quarterback that is new in this place into obvious passing situations. Now, Iowa State's run defense, kind of a liability in 24. They were 98th in the country in rushing yards allowed per game. However, against Kansas State a couple weeks ago, their first real test and first barometer of whether or not they've grown in that area, they gave up just 110 on the ground and punched the ball out. So I do think Iowa State's better, but will they be good enough to limit what should be a run-first style of attack from the Hawkeyes? Question 2. If Iowa's not effective running the football, can they beat you through the air? Now, we talked already about Gronowski and kind of the rhythm that they had a hard time pulling off. It almost looked like he was kind of uncomfortable in the pocket. He started by playing just 2 of his first 8. He didn't really hit anything downfield, missed some layups like I referenced. That includes a touchdown pass where he couldn't quite get enough touch on the ball. And it was a vanilla game plan, no doubt. The scheme was, for the most part, simplified, but the execution was not where it needs to be, and it's a huge step up in competition this week. Now, the wide receivers for Iowa, pretty unproven, somewhat thin. They've already kind of been hit a little hard. You got the sophomore Reese Vanderzee, who is expected to be a key contributor. He's sidelined for a month. He's got the foot injury. You also have Jarrett Bue, who is inactive for the season opener and might be out for the Cy-Hawk game as well. So what do they look like at wide receiver? What does the weaponry look like for Iowa? Because if they're not at 100% on the outside, that'll be hard to take some of the pressure off that rushing attack. Question 3, can Iowa State's weaponry continue to create a lot of problems? Now, we've seen 2 completely different versions of Iowa State's offense this year. Against Kansas State, it was the physical, low scoring, run heavy, avoid mistakes. That was kind of what they were. But against South Dakota, they showed that they maybe haven't taken a huge step back as far as their weapons on the outside. Shows that they have another gear to that passing attack that would be really hard for Iowa to keep up with. I love their tight ends. You got the 6'7" Benjamin Brahmer. You got Gabe Burkle, who are kind of the primary beneficiaries last week of Rocco Beck's record-setting performance. They combined for 11 receptions and all 3 of the teams receiving touchdowns. So these tight ends there for Iowa State, they could prove huge in a game like this. Question number 4, what does Phil Parker have in his bag? Because we're always curious about this. When we break down Iowa games, like, what's Phil Parker going to do? Like, as a football nerd, like, I can't wait to see. Well, we know what he's going to try to do, right? He's going to try to prevent explosive plays. He's going to make sure that his scheme is protected at all times. They're going to be really stout against the run. They're going to be super disciplined. They're going to try to force turnovers against a veteran quarterback. The pass rush, that's the key. Now, they have a really good front 4. I like their ends. Llewellyn, Burkett, really good. I like some of the interior disruption that can be created by Aaron Graves. This is a group that can wreck the opponent's plan. So if they can wreck the opponent's plan, then you could be in a pretty good spot. So we'll see exactly what Phil Parker does in this game in a defensive scheme that might have to go with a bit of a pick your poison approach, because Iowa State's shown multiple ways that they can beat you this season so far. And then question 5, can Iowa State protect the home field? Now, that's probably the most fascinating intangible of this entire game. The fact that Iowa has dominated Ames. To have won their last 6 in Jack Trice, with Iowa State's last home victory in the series coming back in 2011, it's kind of mind-blowing. I think that trend comes to an end. I'll take Iowa State. I've just seen a little more from them offensively. I trust their quarterback more. I think the veteran presence that they have across the roster is going to give them a slight advantage over the Big Ten's Hawkeyes.